Welcome back to Face the Nation. President Biden travels to El Paso today after announcing new border enforcement actions last week. Democratic Congresswoman Veronica Escobar will travel with the president to Texas later today. I'm so glad you could join us.
Thank you for having me.
So the president is going to visit one of the busiest ports of entry in El Paso. He's going to meet with officials and other aid organizations. What can he do to make sure that this 3-hour visit is more than just a photo op?
Well, we've worked with the White House to make sure that all the folks who are actually doing the work on the ground day to day are the ones that the president will meet with. He needs to hear about how, over time, the challenges that we have faced as a country on immigration, on border issues, they have grown exponentially.
So we looked at the latest CBS polling. Only 38% of Americans actually approve of what the president is doing on immigration. 62% disapprove. This has consistently been one of his weakest issues. And it was just this last week he gave his very first speech on the border policy. For the first time, he's going today. And it's taken, 2 years to find some kind of alternative to Title 42. I understand it's going before the Supreme Court, but why is it taking so long to get just this?
This challenge that we're facing is so complex. I'm with you. I would have loved to have seen the administration lean in on immigration from day one.
Why didn't
because,
they?
You know, you'd have to ask them that. The executive branch is not the only branch of government that needs to do its job, though. Mm-hmm. And I will tell you, I've worked very closely with Secretary Mayorkas. He has been phenomenal. Every idea that I have asked him to explore, he has. Every collaboration I've asked him to engage in, he has. Where I've hit a brick wall is Congress. Mm-hmm. And frankly, Democrats and Republicans alike. Yeah. I'm hoping things change. There's a bipartisan delegation going to El Paso from the Senate tomorrow, and I hope they see what the president will see today, which is opportunity, but also long overdue work.
Let's talk about what the administration did just announce, because it was pretty big, this policy. They're expanding the use of that same Title 42 policy, the pandemic-era restrictions that allow for expulsion without guaranteed asylum hearings. And it's going to allow them to dramatically step up expulsions of Cubans, Nicaraguans, Haitians, Venezuelans. They make up the majority of those crossing. You oppose Title 42. Does that mean you oppose what the Biden administration's doing?
Well, it's a complicated answer. So the administration, in the absence of any legislation from the Congress, has very few tools available. I'm a staunch opponent of Title 42. In fact, I think Title 42 is the reason why those apprehension or encounter numbers are so high, because people kept trying over and over and over again. When you're expelled from the border, you're going to try in different areas. I think it also helped fuel the human trafficking that we've seen a significant increase in. And all of this started with the Trump administration. When in my conversations with the Department of Homeland Security, because a Louisiana judge essentially created a situation where they have to continue to use Title 42, they can't go to a different policy which was used prior to Title 42 called Title 8. Mm-hmm. Now, Title 8 is much more punitive, and I think that is what the administration is ultimately going to go toward once a judge allows the Biden administration to do away with Title 42.
Which could come in June when the Supreme Court
could come in June.
Rules.
But even then, Margaret, we will not have had a legislative solution. So all of these executive branch efforts really are just temporary Band-Aids. Whether it's Title 8, whether it's Title 42, we need to make sure that Congress acts.
Yeah, and it sounds like you don't have a lot of high hopes for that kind of action. But let me ask about the Biden policy. So it's going to allow up to 30,000 migrants per month from the 4 countries we just listed to enter if they have a U.S. sponsor. It'll also allow migrants to apply via cell phone app, something called CBP-1. Does someone fleeing abject poverty really have a cell phone to apply for access?
The vast majority of refugees who are fleeing their home countries do have cell phones. That's how they communicate with one another. That's how they communicate with the folks at home. But I will tell you, we do need far more robust State Department involvement, especially for those who do not have access to that kind of technology. We need far greater education. Many of the refugees that I have spoken to, especially over the last couple of weeks, have no concept of what the asylum process is. Yeah. Their idea is, I'm going to go to the border, I'm going to get a job, and I'm going to help my family. Something all of us would do, of course. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done, whether it's assisting those who don't have a cell phone access the services and legal pathways offered through CBP-1, or whether it is helping to educate folks about those legal pathways so that they have a better shot.
I asked you that because I know some have argued it's discriminatory against those who have the least. Mexico, as part of this Biden agreement, has agreed to take about 30,000 people a month from the 4 countries. But one of the things that we've consistently heard over the past few years, and it was a harsh criticism of the Trump administration, is that when individuals are pushed back to Mexico and they're awaiting some kind of action, they face a lot of violence. That's right. So if you criticized it during the Trump administration, you must be a critic during the Biden administration.
Absolutely. And that's why I'm grateful that the president's going to Mexico City to talk to the president. Every step of the journey along the way for these refugees, people who leave with little more than a backpack and their hopes and dreams, experience a nightmarish journey along the way. And many migrants have told me, in fact, that the most dangerous part of the journey is in Mexico. And so there's a lot of work that needs to be done. But Margaret, not just in Mexico, but for the entire hemisphere. We are seeing people fleeing their home countries, heading to Costa Rica, heading to countries all south of here. We have to make sure that diplomatically we are engaging at the highest levels and finally giving the Western Hemisphere the kind of attention that it has lacked for a long time by the U.S. government.
Congresswoman, thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Margaret.